Return of the Jedi was released May 25th, 1983, and it stars Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, Ian McDiarmid, David Prowse, Attie Daniels, Kenny Baker, Frank Oz, and Peter Mayhew. Now, like with the last two movies, I just watched a despecialised VHS with no special edition changes at all. But I'm not going to say that I'm going to be reviewing this movie like it just came out, because I said that in my last two videos, and in those videos I talked about the prequels and the special editions, so the chances are when I'm doing this review I'm going to mention the prequels or the special editions somewhere. Like, I'll probably talk about Jabba the Hutt, like, yeah, we're introduced to Jabba the Hutt. I'm not going to mention that he was in A New Hope, because according to the movies I've been watching, we've seen no Jabba the Hutt, so there's going to be stuff like that. Now, I don't know much about the hype for this movie, but if I was around when this movie came out, I'd have been so excited, because this was the concluding chapter of the Star Wars saga. This is the one we've been waiting for. This is the one that was going to resolve everything. We'll be able to see if Darth Vader really is Luke's father. We'll be able to see Luke and Leia rescue Han from the Carbonite on Tatooine. We'll be able to see the Emperor. We'll be able to see Luke continue training with Yoda. We'll be able to see Jabba the Hutt, and with all that in mind, naturally this movie has to be good, right? Well, that's what we're here to find out, so let's not waste any time and dive right into Return of the Jedi. So we open our movie with the construction of the new Death Star, and straight away you can feel something's off here, except because why would they build another Death Star? It didn't work out too well last time, so why would they build another one with an even bigger tunnel to the reactor that whole ship could fit through? Plus, the last Death Star took like 2 decades to make, and this one only took about 3 years. So in my opinion, it's just really lazy writing. But the Death Star does look But the Death Star and construction does look really cool regardless. And it also made me think there are a lot of trilogies out there where you get where the first film has a formula and the second one branches away from that, and in the third movie they go back to some stuff in the original. You got the Star Wars trilogy, you got the Spider-Man trilogy, you got the Back to the Future trilogy, you got the Dark Knight trilogy, you got the Indiana Jones trilogy, and many more. And that's just something I realised the other day, so let's just start mentioning it. And it wasn't just the Death Star itself that Return of the Jedi took from A New Hope. I mean, there are also several other things. I mean, they brought back Tatooine, they brought back the assault on the Death Star, they brought back a lightsaber fight on the Death Star, and they even brought back little things back, like Han's jacket, for example. So it does make me think, all the people that complain about Force Awakens being too similar to A New Hope, but when you think about it, Return of the Jedi weren't too far away from A New Hope either, if you think about it. Right, so we're back on Tatooine, the rescue mission of Han Solo starts, and I love it. I mean, there are a few plot holes in this whole plan, but I don't really care. It's a blast to watch. Jabba's palace was amazing, and speaking of Jabba, we're finally introduced to Jabba the Hutt, because, you know, he went in A New Hope. And he looks really, really good. I mean, I saw a documentary on the making of Jabba the Hutt, and there was so much time and effort put into Jabba the Hutt, and most definitely paid off. Jabba the Hutt looks like a real living, breathing creature, and there's so many small details that went into creating him, like the breathing and like his tongue, and there were a bunch of puppeteers underneath it. There was so much hard work put into Jabba to make him look really good, and it most definitely paid off, so well done whoever worked on Jabba the Hutt. There are a few problems with everything on Tatooine. The first thing that pops to mind is, why is Boba Fett there? I mean, he only went there to deliver his bounty to Jabba the Hutt. He would have took Han to Jabba the Hutt, he would have collected his bounty, then he would have left. Why is he sticking around for? I guess it's just because like the plot requires him, but like I said, it's just some more lazy writing in my opinion. So a bounty hunter turns up, who turns out to be Leia, and I really love at the end where Boba Fett just gives a little nod. It's kind of like this bounty hunter connection they have, like lorry drivers and bikers and all that stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. But one thing I always wondered is Leia, because is Leia actually speaking that language in that accent, or has she just got like this voicing on? Because it honestly sounds absolutely nothing like Leia. So I've always wondered, is she actually speaking the language, or has she just got like this weird voicing in a helmet? And no one's really mentioned that, and that's just something I've always wondered. Alright, so like I said, the bounty hunter turns out to be Leia, and she frees Han from the Carbonite. And while we're on the topic of Han in the Carbonite, I found this fan theory the other day which I really liked, and it said that the whole Indiana Jones movie franchise was Han Solo's dream while he was in Carbonite. Now, it's obviously not true, but I really love that, so every time I watch these Star Wars films now, that's what I'm going to think of. So we're reintroduced to Luke, and everyone says he's a badass in this film, but I don't really see it like that. I see Luke as kind of a dick in this film, because he's just going around force-choking people and telling Jabba he either has to release his friends or die. It just makes you think, after all that time he spent with Yoda in Empire Strikes Back, telling him that the Force is for knowledge and defence, never for attack, it just made me wonder why Luke had such a sudden change of heart, and why he became so much more harsh in this one than he was in the last one. And the way he acts this movie, it doesn't seem like a Jedi way of thinking. I mean, a Jedi don't go into a gangster's palace saying release my friends or die. That's just not what you should do. It's never explained why he acts like that, and no one even questions it. So when Jabba refuses to give Han over, Luke just tries to grab a blaster and shoot him in the face. And that's another thing I don't think a Jedi would do. And even if he did, even if the guard didn't take the gun off him, after he shot Jabba in the face, what would happen then? He'd just die because everyone would shoot him. He hasn't got a lightsaber to defend himself with, which is another thing I kind of was iffy about in this movie. Why doesn't Luke have this lightsaber with him? Like, I know it's stored inside R2-D2 at this point, but why is it? He could have just kept it on him. There's no reason why he shouldn't have it on him. I mean, I know it's because of the big reveal later on, which I'll talk about, but still, there's no logical reason in this film why he won't have his lightsaber on him, and no one mentions that, so that's kind of weird. So Luke falls into the Rancor pit, and oh my gosh, the Rancor is no joke, some of the best stop motion I've ever seen in my life. When I first saw this, I was so astounded with how good it looked. Because normally when I first watched the Star Wars movies with the special editions, but I also had the VHSs, so I had to put the VHS back in to check this wasn't a special edition change, and when I found out that it wasn't, my mind was just blown. Everything about the Rancor is just so smooth looking. It doesn't look like an object being moved every second. It looks like Jabba, it looks like a living, breathing creature. It looks incredibly good. And I really don't think the Rancor gets enough appreciation in this movie. I mean, people do compliment it, but I just think they seem like there's so much. I don't know anything about the making of the Rancor, but it looks really great. So I think the Rancor needs to get more appreciation in this film because it looks incredible. One of the best pieces of special effects in this whole movie, in my opinion. And of course, how can I not mention Slave Leia? And it is very nice to look at, but immature jokes aside, it does go against her being a strong female character, because I know, like, when everyone else mentions this, they say, oh, I don't mind it because it looks really nice. But when you think about it seriously, there's no genuine reason why that has to be in this movie. I mean, in the original Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, she wasn't really sexualised at all. She was just a really strong female character. So in this movie, I think they only put her in a bikini just to, like, attract a larger audience. It doesn't really benefit the movie at all. If anything, it actually takes away from it. Because, like I said, it ruins a strong female character. So Han and Luke are sentenced to death by the Sarlacc pit, and I just love this bit here where, like, the music comes up and they're all looking at each other, because it just makes you think, yeah, they all know their roles, they know what they're doing, some shit's about to go down, and it's awesome because the lightsaber pops out of R2-D2, Luke catches it and it turns out to be green, and I know, like, people have seen green lightsabers before, but at the time, a green lightsaber was like a whole new thing, and it was really awesome. Because before then it was just like good guys blue, bad guys red. So when a green lightsaber was introduced, I can imagine it was a pretty big thing. And I think what was really clever, in the posters and trailers, they showed Luke Skywalker's lightsaber being blue, which I thought was clever. Because I always thought when I was younger, why would they advertise Luke Skywalker's lightsaber being blue if it was green in the movie? But it didn't actually click to me that, oh yeah, we haven't seen a green lightsaber before, so it was a big shock. But yeah, green lightsaber I think was a really good idea. And it is actually my favourite looking lightsaber, so yeah. So we get a big showdown. Luke's just wailing away with his lightsaber. Leia gets the gun and shoots the ship. It's all really awesome. But this is also a bit where Boba Fett goes out like a complete bitch. I mean, Boba Fett was such an awesome character, so just to, like, throw him away in the Sarlacc pit in the stupidest way possible, it seems really disrespectful to his character, but I don't really think it's that much of a big thing. I mean, at the time, I don't think the creators of Star Wars knew what a popular character Boba Fett was, so it's not really a major gripe of this movie, but it is major disappointing. And yes, I know that in the EU Expanded Universe, it does turn out he escapes the Sarlacc pit, but I don't know if it's canon anymore, but still, according to the movies, this is where Boba Fett dies, and it is majorly disappointing. Alright, so Jabba dies, they escape with Han Solo, and it was a really fun ride. Everything on Tatooine is definitely my favourite part of this movie. Now, I know earlier on in the video I did complain saying that, oh yeah, they brought Tatooine back from the original, even though we're in Empire Strikes Back, but still, if Tatooine were in this movie, we won't get that awesome 40-minute action sequence. And the more that I think about it, I think I prefer everything that happens here on Tatooine than everything that happened on Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back. Now, speaking of this scene here where Luke's in his pilot, now what was always apparent to me, even when I first watched this movie, is that Han Solo said to Luke, thanks for saving me, now I owe you one. But in The Empire Strikes Back, Han said to Luke, that's two you owe me. So technically, Luke still owes Han one, and that's always been a thing in my head when I watch this. Now, this scene here is a really great scene in my opinion, because it's this scene where we see Darth Vader subservient to someone, and it's really awesome because up until now, Vader just seemed like the top dog, so to see him bow down to someone, I don't know what the word is, it's just really cool. And we're introduced to the Emperor in person, and Ian McDiarmid absolutely kills it as the Emperor. He is so awesome, the way he speaks, the way he looks, the way he punches his back, his arms, his cane, he just embodies that character so well. Which just kind of annoys me in prequels, because in this movie he seems like one of those characters that like it's kind of like a behind the scenes character, but it's really badass. But in the prequels, he's going to have a lightsaber and be all out there, and you can tell Ian McDiarmid, he weren't really into that. It was more of like being like the manipulating kind of person, not like the warrior kind of person, and you could really tell that in the prequels. But it's definitely this movie where Ian McDiarmid shines the most as the Emperor. He was really great in this. And also, another thing I think gets overlooked is the Emperor's theme song. No one mentions the Emperor's theme song, and it is one of my favourite pieces of music in the whole Star Wars saga. It sounds so menacing and dark, and it just screams like his character, and I just think the Emperor's theme song is really awesome. So we get on to Yoda's death, and it is really heartfelt, but one thing that always annoyed me is that Yoda said to Luke that he requires no more training, and it's never explained why. Like I said, normally Jedis take years and years of training before they're a full Jedi Knight, and Luke only had a few weeks with Yoda, if that, and then he left him, and he didn't come back until now. So, how did Yoda come to the conclusion that he requires no more training? Because I think he'd require a lot more training. Like, I know that in the EU, Luke found some books and that or whatever, but still, that's all in the EU. It's not explained in the movies itself, which is what I'm reviewing. So, no one mentions that, and it just kind of aggs me that it does. And it is also revealed here that the Darth Vader is in fact Luke Skywalker, and I'd really love to be like a fly on the wall with the discussions that people had in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, whether Darth Vader was Luke's father or not. So I think that'd be really interesting to watch, like the different theories of why Vader would lie in that. No, because obviously I weren't around, but I just really love to like be part of that conversation and that. I was wondering what I would think if I watched The Empire Strikes Back for the first time, and it wasn't confirmed yet if Darth Vader was in fact Luke Skywalker's father. So after the death of Yoda, we get the scene where Ghost Ben reveals to Luke that the other Skywalker Yoda was talking about was his twin sister Leia, and I always thought that was really unnecessary. I don't think it was really good or bad. I just don't think it adds anything to the series or takes it away. And it has been revealed that when they mentioned the other Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back, they're actually talking about his sister on the other side of the galaxy, and they were going to save that till the next movie, but then they wanted to wrap everything up in this movie, so they decided let's just make it Leia. Which is kind of stupid, because they did make out in Empire Strikes Back, so you can tell they didn't originally intend Luke and Leia to be siblings, or they wouldn't have put that in. But it just made me think, why didn't they make another movie after Return of the Jedi? I mean, like, obviously we do have Force Awakens now, but they were going to make one like straight after, like Empire Strikes Back. I think it's because George Lucas already had the prequels in mind, so just wanted to wrap the original trilogy up and get started with the prequels. Why did he do that? I will never know. It just made me really curious to think what the next chapter of the Star Wars saga would be after Return of the Jedi, if it was made back then. Because, like I said, we've had Force Awakens, but that's like decades later by a new company and whatnot. So I think George Lucas's vision of the next Star Wars movie would be pretty different, I think, and I'm really curious to what that would be. So the Rebellion are talking about taking down the new Death Star. And Han tells Lando that he wants him to take the Millennium Falcon. And it's the first time here where I just thought that the Harrison Ford's performance in this movie was kind of weak, I think. I mean, no disrespect to Harrison Ford, I think he's a great actor, but I just think in this movie his performance was not wooden, but just poor. But still, he's still a great Han Solo and everything, but I just think his performance in the original Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and The Force Awakens were much better in this movie. I think maybe it's because, like Harrison Ford said in real life, that he wanted Han Solo to die in this. So maybe, and after the studio said they didn't want to do that, maybe he was a bit irritated with that, so maybe that's why he didn't put his full effort in. Or maybe he did, maybe I'm just being a bit too harsh. I just don't think Harrison Ford delivered as much as he normally does. So I don't know if you think that, or if it's just me, I don't know. Right, so here we get the scene that the Emperor's basically just telling Vader what to do, and everyone says this is basically a pointless exposition scene, but I don't know, I kind of really do like this scene. I don't know what it is, I just like seeing the Emperor and Darth Vader have a chat. I just think, like, instead of, like, normally they're portrayed as big menacing bad guys, and just seeing them have a little chat here, it's kind of refreshing, I think. And another thing, right at the end of the scene, you see the Emperor walk over to these two guys to talk about something, and I always wondered what that was. I mean, maybe that where they're just going to sit down and talk politics and that. I don't know, but I'm just really curious to what they're talking about. I mean, it was probably nothing, but still, I'd just like to know what they were talking about. Not really a big thing. So it's here we get the scene when Han, Luke and Leia are trying to gain access to Endor. And there's nothing wrong with this scene, but it just kind of annoys me that Luke keeps on saying, Vader's on that ship, I'm endangering the mission, he can sense me. And Han keeps on basically telling him to shut up. And I'm just screaming at the screen saying, okay Han, who's the Jedi Knight here? Yeah, Luke, so maybe you should take his advice into consideration instead of being a stubborn prick. But I guess it's his character really, and it's not really anything wrong with the movie. That's just something I wanted to mention about this scene that kind of just annoys me a little bit. Alright, so the team arrive on Endor, and seriously, Endor's got to be the most overrated Star Wars planet ever. I mean, everyone says that Endor's one of the best Star Wars planets, but at the end of the day, it's a forest. It's a forest, guys. And so I do find Endor kind of boring. I think this is the point when the movie kind of goes downhill a bit, because I think Endor could have been a really interesting planet if there was some interesting stuff happening, but seriously, most of the stuff that happens on Endor, I'm just not invested in. But we do get this epic chase sequence, and I really don't get it when people say that this sequence doesn't hold up today. I mean, the green screen and everything looks fine. It's adrenaline fueled, it's fast paced, and it definitely holds up today. Just like a lot of the action sequences in this movie, which is a big reason why I can look past some of the stupidest stuff in this movie. And it's here we're introduced to Wicket, the first Ewok. Now, I don't really think the Ewoks are that bad. It's the fight that really makes me hate the Ewoks. I mean, I wouldn't mind the Ewoks if they were just like these little natives that they come into contact with, but when the actual fight goes down, it's rebels or Wookiees or whatever. But the fight between Ewoks and Stormtroopers is stupid as hell, but I'll get into that when it actually comes to the fight. And another thing that annoys me about the Ewoks is that George Lucas didn't make these to add to the movie. They made it so he put it in the movie so we could sell toys and merchandise and make some children's films. Because seriously, there's like 3 Star Wars films about the Ewoks, and it's really stupid. So Luke, Han, and Chewie are introduced to the Ewoks, and they think C-3PO is some kind of god because of his gold armor. And this is just really stupid. Sorry, because C-3PO, he says that it's against his programming to impersonate a deity. Why someone would write that into his programming, I have no idea. But if that's the case, then why doesn't C-3PO just say to the Ewoks, I'm not your god, I'm a droid? Because he never says that. He just basically goes, alright, think I'm a god, I'll roll with it. And when the Ewoks take Luke and Han to be a feast in C-3PO's honour, yeah, that actually happens, Luke tells C-3PO to say to them that if he doesn't set them free, then he'll use his godlike powers to like kill them all. But if it's against his programming to impersonate a deity, he won't be able to do that. So why would... It's really stupid, sorry. It just stalls time, and it just bores the hell out of me, and I'm not interested whatsoever. Right, so we get to the scene where Luke explains to Leia that Darth Vader is his father, and they are siblings. And this is a scene that just shows that George Lucas and everyone did not intend Luke to be Luke's sibling, because there was not one hint of a moment in this scene where Leia just sits down and just realises, oh crap, Darth Vader is my father. Because every time I've watched this movie, I've been just staring at Leia's face, waiting for something. Maybe I kept on thinking, maybe I missed something. Maybe there's a moment there where she's like, okay, Darth Vader's my father. No, there's nothing. And I think it's really stupid when Han comes out and she's crying, and then Han asks her what's wrong, and then she says, I can't tell you. And it's like, because there's no reason why Leia can't just say, Luke just told me that he's my brother and Darth Vader's my father, because maybe then we'll get some proper emotion out of Leia that shows us that she's shocked about the news that Darth Vader is her dad. So it just, like I just said before, it just goes to show that the creators of Star Wars did not want Leia to be Luke's sister. They just added that in to wrap everything up nicely because they didn't want to make another movie after this one. They wanted to get started with the prequels. And another thing that aggravates me in this scene is that Luke tells Leia that she has the ability to use the Force and be a great Force wielder just like him and his father, but maybe like not in the same way that he uses it. And Luke says, in time you'll learn to use it as I have. So that just hints that maybe in like the expanded universe, Leia becomes a Jedi, or maybe not a Jedi, maybe someone like Maskanata, like she knows the Force and that. But we never really get anything like that, so I thought maybe in Force Awakens, since she knows that she has the ability to be a great Force user, she'll use that ability somehow, but she doesn't. We never ever see Leia use anything to do with the Force. Maybe, I guess you could argue that her ability to use the Force is like to be a great leader and that's her Force ability, but I don't know. Right, so it's here we get the scene where Luke is talking to Darth Vader and he's trying to get him to turn back to the light side. And this is definitely one of the best scenes in the movie, probably my favourite scene in the movie, because this is the first time Luke and Darth Vader have been in contact since he found out that he was his father. So you would think it'd be awkward, but it's not. It's just Luke's like, okay, I've got this situation, I'm going to deal with it, and we'll try and turn Darth Vader back. And in this scene, we get so much more depth to Vader than we do, because in this scene, we get little hints that he doesn't like what he's doing. He's kind of got that Kylo Ren in him. Well, the other way around, really, because Kylo hasn't been born yet. But he's got that lightness in him, but he just will not. He just wants to keep it contained. He doesn't want to let it out. But Luke can see that, and I just love that about this scene. Like, you see hints of Darth Vader coming back to the light side, but then as soon as you see that, he just goes back into evil mode, and you just want that goodness in him to just come out more, but it doesn't happen until the end of the movie. So this scene, in my opinion, is just pure genius. So it's here the rebellion gears up for their second attack on the Death Star, and it's here where the three most famous lines in the whole movie are spoken.
It's a trap!
Unfortunately, the actor who played Admiral Akbar, Eric Balzerfeld, died the other day, but those three iconic words will live on forever. But the battle that ensues is a visual wonder, probably the best space battle we've ever had in a Star Wars movie, and just to think that all these is practical effects, like I said before, there must have been so much effort that's gone into this fight, and it truly is a feast for the eyes. But I do have to say though, it does lack the intensity that the space battle had in A New Hope, because what they're doing here, they're just killing time until the shields are down, but in A New Hope, there's so much more pressure because the Death Star is about to destroy Yavin in a matter of minutes. You're in a confined space, you're being chased by Darth Vader, and you've got to shoot some torpedoes into a hole that's only 2 meters wide, and it's almost impossible to do. And you have to rely on the Force, which is something at the time Luke was barely familiar with. So it was really nerve-wracking. But here, there's not much at stake. Well, there's a lot at stake, but you know that it's all going to turn out well in the end. So yeah, it isn't that really tense, but still, if you just sit back and relax and just enjoy yourself, it is, like I said, it's a visual feast. But unfortunately, with that, we do get the Battle of Endor between the Ewoks and the Stormtroopers, and it is so stupid. I hate it so much. I get the concept of like natives defeating a technological terror, but it was executed so poorly. This is just slapstick, and it's ridiculous. The Emperor even said he sent his best stormtroopers down to that moon. The rebels don't stand a chance. But I guess if you get an army of teddy bears and they can defeat them, the stormtroopers are wearing armour and they're getting taken out by rocks. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some cool stuff in here, like when the Ewoks get the logs and they smash the Imperial War card. That looks pretty cool, but there's just too much slapstick. You even see Chewbacca imitate Tarzan. It's ridiculous. And to see this ridiculous fight and the epic fight between Luke and Darth Vader, which I'll talk about in a minute, just keep on cutting between each other, it just gets really annoying because I am not interested in this at all. I just want to see Luke versus Vader. So when it cuts to this, I'm just screaming at the screen because I don't care about this nonsense. Just take me back to Luke and Vader. That's another thing I really don't like in this movie. It's the shift in tone. Like 1 minute, you've got Luke trying to convert Vader back to the light side, and it's really deep and tense. But then, like in a split second, you cut back to this stupid slapstick, and it's just not enjoyable, and it gets really irritating really quickly. And it's not even the battle itself that I don't like. Even if it was just rebel troopers or Wookiees, which I think would have been a far better idea, I don't care about the mission. I'm not invested. I don't care about Han and Leia disabling the shields. It's probably the least interesting thing in this whole movie, and I just really don't care for it at all. And it's a major point in this movie that I just really don't like. So Vader brings Luke before the Emperor, and it is really awesome. It's tense and all that. But there's one little thing I don't like about it. When he said that it was him who let the Alliance know the location of the shield. But it's pretty obvious to me. I mean, the Death Star is literally right next to Endor. I mean, it literally could not be any other planet. So you're not that clever, Palpatine. Come on. Actually, speaking of the name Palpatine, you know the name Darth Sidious or Palpatine was never said in this movie. It was introduced in the prequels. But you know, that's a little fun fact for you. And neither was the name Ewoks. That was displayed in the credits and in the merchandise, but it was never but the name Ewoks was never said in the movie. Or Wicket. Or any of the names of the Ewoks. I just know that because I'm a huge nerd. So we get the scene where Vader is taunting Luke, and Luke just canes Vader. He gets him on the floor, he chops off his hand, but when he sees that, he realises he's coming just like his dad, so he restrains himself. And as great as this scene is, there is one thing that annoys me about it, and that's that it completely contradicts what Yoda said in The Empire Strikes Back. Yoda said, once you turn to the dark side, there's no going back, basically. But Luke completely just gave himself to the dark side, and he came back from it, and it was fine. So that just shows that you can use dark side abilities and still be good. So it just goes against everything that that everyone's been saying. But people have acknowledged this because in the expanded universe, well, the non-canon expanded universe, in Luke's new academy, dark side abilities became more common. Like Force Lightning was a thing that was used in Luke's Jedi Order. Even though it was frowned upon, it was still used by Luke Skywalker himself. But still, I don't get why Yoda would say all that if you can use dark side abilities and still be on the light side. It doesn't make any sense. But nevertheless, it is a really powerful scene. And one thing I do love about it is Vader's scream when he falls, because Vader, he always seems like he's on top of things. Even when he's losing, he always seems like he's on top of things. That's this sound in his voice that shows, yeah, things may be bad, but I'm going to be alright in the end. So when he screams when Luke gets him on the floor, it has a big impact on me, because it's like you're saying, oh god, Vader has been defeated. This is like the first time he has ever been screwed, like as he was Darth Vader. This is like a massive moment. So I think that's pretty cool, and that's one thing that I do love about this movie. It adds so much character depth, especially to Darth Vader. And also in this scene we're introduced to the Emperor's Force Lightning along with the green lightsaber. It was quite a big shocker back in the day. And this has always occurred to me. Yoda said that the dark side is no more powerful than the light side, it's just quicker and easier. But I have never ever seen a Jedi use Force Lightning in the Star Wars movies, so where'd you get that from, Yoda? Because I remember when I was younger, like very young, like 8 or 9, I was like 8 or 9 years old in the playground or something, we used to be playing like Jedi and Sith and that. And then people said, oh, what are you, Jedi or Sith? And everyone's like, oh, I want to be a Jedi. So, oh, but if you're Jedi, can't use Force Lightning? And everyone will be like, oh, I want to be a Jedi and a Sith. And it's like, oh, no, you can't be both. So that's what I always saw. If the Jedi if the dark side was no powerful than the good side, then how come the dark side has Force Lightning and the light side has animal friendship, which is a genuine canon ability? Look it up if you don't believe me. So while Luke is getting fried by the Emperor, you see the confliction in Darth Vader's face. I think it's really well done because you actually can't see his face, you just see a black mask, but you can see he's staring at Luke, then he's looking at the Emperor, looking at Luke, and we're all just screaming at the screen going, come on Vader, do it, and eventually he does, he grabs the Emperor and he hurls him over the balcony, and it was really satisfying, and we were all just left rooting for Vader. So we get the scene where Luke takes Vader's helmet off as his dying wish. What I find interesting, Luke is struggling to carry Vader, and everyone else is just running. I'm sure some of them could see him, but now that Vader's all powerless, no one gives a crap about him. And I like that kind of metaphor. It's like, yeah, 10 minutes ago they would have died for you, but now that you're powerless, you're nothing, mate. So, for the first time we see Vader's face, and notice how he still has his eyebrows and no burn, so he's obviously not burnt, so how did he get all scarred up? George Lucas didn't think of that, did he? I always like to think that, like, maybe, before Episode 4, obviously, before he became Darth Vader, Anakin had a fight with Obi-Wan and he lost. So Anakin went back to the Emperor, humiliated, and the Emperor just completely screwed him up. He fried him, he got his lightsaber, he whacked him across the face or something. He just completely screwed Vader up. He's on death's door. Then maybe some medics will come in, like he's still alive, Emperor. Then Emperor could have been just like, cool, make him better then. And then he gets his suit, and that's when Vader knows that he has to be loyal to the Emperor because he knows how powerful he is. I think that's what George Lucas should have done with the prequels. That's just one of the many things I think he should have changed, but still, I think that's an interesting one. And also, the Rebels blow up the Death Star again, but this time it barely has any impact because we knew that was coming, and it's not really new. It was so much better than the original, and it was better than the original because that was the main focus. The main focus was destroying the Death Star. This is just a side mission, so when it blows up, I'm just like, cool, great, that's done. Next part, please. So yeah, it really didn't work like the original did. So after the Death Star blows up, we get this weird little moment with Han and Leia, where Leia says she loves Luke, and then their hands all like upset and that, and it takes her like 10 seconds to be like, oh no, he's my brother. And I'm like, are you serious? She couldn't have forgot that she didn't told him. Leia's just a bitch who's messing around with him. I mean, why did they have to add that? It's really stupid. I just think that's a really stupid scene, and it just adds to the reason why didn't she just tell him in the first place? There's no reason that Leia didn't tell Han that Luke was her brother. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So yeah, that was a weird little moment. Alright, so now the Empire's been destroyed, everyone's having a party, and Luke sees the ghosts of Obi-Wan and Yoda, and then he's joined by Anakin Skywalker, which was a really heartwarming moment, I think. Everyone's happy, and then our movie is over. And one thing that I need to mention is that in the original version they used the Yub Nub song, but in the special editions they used a new song that John Williams wrote for the film, and it is so much better. I mean, I love the Yub Nub song, and it does really annoy me that you can't find the Yub Nub song on the Return of the Jedi soundtrack anymore. But the new song that John Williams wrote, Victory Celebration, was far better in my opinion, and it was a great way to close the saga at the time. So, here are my closing thoughts on Return of the Jedi. Well, believe it or not, I was actually looking forward to reviewing this movie the most out of the original three. Not necessarily because this is my favourite, it's because I just love the original Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back so much. I didn't have a lot of bad things to say about them, but with this one, there are a few things that I didn't like, so I was looking forward to having a more even review instead of just having like a 20-minute compliment. So yeah, there are some good points in this movie, there are some bad points. Now the things that I dislike, but let's talk about the things that I dislike the most. Now one of the things I dislike is kind of the lack of originality really, especially with the Death Star department. The Death Star could have just been completely wiped from this film. I mean, we could still have a great space battle between the Rebels and the Empire, just not over the Death Star, just because it just have a massive conflict. You saw on the Death Star, we don't need it. We don't need another Death Star, simple. So yeah, there isn't a lot that isn't original here, but the whole Death Star thing, I mean, yeah, you have your Ewoks, which I can get by. You've got your Battle of Endor, which is beyond stupid, but I can almost get by, but only because how awesome the rest of the movie is. The thing that I dislike the most in Return of the Jedi is the simple, straightforward plot. I mean, you can tell that the creators of the film were thinking, alright, we released 2 Star Wars movies, they were massive successes, we can't ruin it with this film, so they just played it as safe as they can, and you can really tell. Because in this movie, it was very predictable, there wasn't any twist and turn. I mean, you got your green lightsaber and your Force Lightning, which was pretty new and shocking and great. But in this movie, it's basically just the Rebels carrying out a mission. Now what made Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back so great was that it was unpredictable. No one meant to be in the situations that they were in. They were just doing something else, and then some crap happened to them on the way. But in this movie, it's basically just them carrying out a plan, and it all went smoothly. Nothing really went too wrong. They had a few bumps in the road, but ultimately it turned out how everyone expected it to be and how they expected it to be. At the time, it just got painfully obvious, in my opinion. And also, one of my earlier videos was my worst best Star Wars movies, which I've privatised now because it's just really embarrassing. But when I talked about Return of the Jedi, I said there wasn't much of a sense of adventure. I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say that there wasn't a lot of scope. Barely introduced any new planets. We already knew Tatooine, we already knew Dagobah, and the only planet it introduced us to was Endor, which at the end of the day, like I said, it's just a forest. It's not that interesting. So you can tell that the creators of this movie really didn't want to take too many risks. But at the end of the day, it did turn out pretty well. And another thing I think this movie suffers from is that it tries to juggle a light and dark tone, and it really doesn't work. Like, the whole Luke Vader and the Emperor thing was great. I love that storyline. The whole of Luke's story arc in this movie, it was fantastic. But when you see it cut into by the Battle of Endor, it just gets really annoying and jarring because you get something that's really dark and gritty, then something that's really goofy and silly, and it keeps on going back and forth, and it does get really jarring at points. And even though it's the weakest of the trilogy, it still has the fun factor, and it's a satisfying ending to the Star Wars trilogy, and a great addition to the Star Wars saga, which is why I'm going to give Star Wars Return of the Jedi a solid 7.5 out of 10. So yeah, that's my review for Return of the Jedi. So now I've got the original trilogy done, I'll be getting on to the prequel soon, and all my days, Force Awakens is coming out on Blu-ray tomorrow, in England. I mean, if you're in the States, you got it like 2 weeks ago. But still, I'm going to get the DVD and Blu-ray tomorrow, I'm going to do an unboxing of it, and then soon after that I'm going to do another Blu-ray update video, including the Force Awakens. So make sure you tune in for that, and make sure you tune in to all my other Star Wars reviews, and I'll see you next time, guys.